Good day, everybody. Welcome to this first episode of On the Couch with Matita today. Well, the whole idea of hosting this is just to, try and assist some of you guys out there who wants to do certain things, but they don't know how to go about doing those things. As I've put it on my blog, the whole idea is to merge psychology with African wisdom. Okay, there's a lot of things that we can do around what we have learned as Africans, and then also learn from what psychology is telling us. My background briefly, but that's not the purpose today. I will have another. My profession is in psychology. I'm an industrial psychologist and I was psychologist. I work in aviation as a human factors specialist, which is another topic that I will. You want to do something with your life. You've planned, those grand entrances. You want to build an empire, but you don't know how to go about it. So I've brought somebody who has walked this journey. Somebody who's got experience, somebody that I met. Funny enough, when we were doing our masters in psychology, Tshepo Tsiu, he's done a wonderful job, more especially when you look at the industrial psychology space. He's done a lot of work, and lucky enough, with this first session, he's the one person that I tend to, because I'm sure he will share a lot of wisdom with you guys. Without wasting time, let me welcome Tshepo. Welcome.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Are you well?
I'm very well. And yourself?
No, it's all good. No issues. And as I was doing the introduction, I mean, you were the first person that I thought of, when I started this journey of being on the couch with Matita. And also I've started this journey of being a coach as well. So that's where this thing comes from. Let's plant the seed. Let's assist people out there who wants to be assisted. But I believe you are the right person to do that. Can you just introduce yourself?
Okay.
Tell us who you are.
Thank you very much. I think I need to start by congratulating you on this wonderful step. I really need to, and a lot of people need to be uplifted. People need knowledge. We need to share knowledge. People don't know what to do. People are really struggling, and I really need to congratulate you on what you're doing. And I also feel honored to be invited as your first guest on the couch. My name is Tshepo Tsiu, as you've said. I run a company called Affinity Group. Affinity Group has got 3 legs underneath it. There's Affinity Consulting, which does work in your private and your public sectors. And then you've got Affinity Industrial Psychologist, which does personal injury type of work, forensic type of work. And then you've got the last leg, which is Affinity Essentials, which does essential services as we know it. Yeah. So that's really that's the group of companies that I look over. I have 3 offices, Pretoria, Johannesburg, and Polokwane, and I have about 12 full-time employees and many other casual ad hoc employees that come in on a specific basis.
Okay. Brilliant. Brilliant. And I admire you, Tshepo. I mean, you're doing a great job, more especially when you look at us as industrial psychologists. I don't think we have done a lot, you know, to impart the knowledge, more especially to those up and coming, you know, industrial psychologists who wants to enter our space. And I believe you can share. So what I wanted us to talk about is these stories that we constantly tell ourselves. You know, we are human beings and we tell ourselves stories. And many times, the stories that we're telling ourselves, they become part of us. You know, you find people telling themselves that I can't do this, and eventually they are unable to do that because that's what they told themselves. And there are those who say, "Well, I can do this. I don't have a problem," and they prosper. So those are the kinds of stories that we tell ourselves. So I want you to share with everybody in terms of, you know, this African wisdom to say, if you want to move the mountain tomorrow, you must start first by, you know, lifting stones today. So what are those stones that you started lifting until you built this empire called Affinity Group?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and thank you. I feel honored that, you know, today I get to talk about my experience. I need to just start off by saying that, you know, we come from a very traumatic past as a country.
Yeah.
And a lot of the generation before us felt the full wrath of that past. So you tend to find that there's a generation, in fact, some of the people that I talk to on that generation tell me that they never thought apartheid would end. They gotten used to apartheid. So I'll start off with that point because it's very important to understand that, especially you need to have a lot of self-belief in what you're doing, and be careful sometimes of who you share your ambitions with, because there are some people with their own residual mental blocks who may try to project their own insecurities onto you, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's out of goodwill. It's not to dishearten you. It's just that we come from two different generations. We're glad to say there isn't any systemic barriers, systemic and legislated barrier for us to achieve what we want. In the past, there were a lot of ceilings, and which were predetermined. They were legislated, they were systemic. So we don't have that problem anymore. And I believe that you need to have a lot of self-belief. That's the first part. If you don't believe it yourself, nobody else will believe you. So be careful of psychological cages. I call it the psychological cage. So there is no cage. If there is a cage, remember that the gate is open. So you are free to do what you want to do. Legally able to. And it's the first thing you need to do, because a lot of people think you need to be very, you need to be brave. There's a nice word I love. You have to be intrepid. You have to be brave.
Correct.
There needs to be a no fear out of this thing. Remember, like I said, if you don't believe it yourself, nobody else will believe it.
Nobody else. Before you move on, I just want to leverage on what you've just said in terms of and psychological cage as well. There's also what we call comparison cage. You know, when we compare ourselves with other people, things like, I'm not as good as so and so. I can't do this as much as somebody else can do it. So, and it leverages on what you're saying, actually. That comparison cage that we need to, you know, free ourselves from.
We have been given different talents and gifts. some are tall, some are short, and we have different talents, and it's important. Person has been built according to what they're meant to do in this world. If you're meant to be a basketball player, chances are that you've been built in a certain way to fulfill that mission. And don't try and confuse yourself. Michael Jordan doesn't want to be a psychologist because he understood his gift and he made use of his gift. So I think the comparison cage is very important, but be careful that you use all the talents and the gifts that God has given to you. He's given them to you, not to anybody else, whether it be physical, whether it be intellectual, whether it be oratory, you name it. Those are different gifts that we all have. And one of the other things I'm very careful to is what I call a circle of competence. I'm very clear about the things that I can do and the things that I can't do. So as much as there are things that I can do, but there's a lot of things that I can't do. And I am careful about my circle of competence. I play to my strengths. If I can't do something, I know that there's somebody who will do it better and faster than I can. And I try not to focus on things that I can't do or things I'm not good at. So that's just one thing, because we all have 24 hours in a day. And it's very important how you use those 24 hours in a day. So I think that's, I don't know if you'd like me to elaborate on that.
Yeah, it's fine. Continue. I think that's an interesting thing there. So there's a difference between just to elaborate on what you say, that circle of competence, and then also the stories that we tell ourselves. There's a distinction between the two. The other extreme is those stories that we tell ourselves to say, I can't do this thing. To the extent that it decapacitates us from doing anything. So and that's,
I think just go back in stories that people tell ourselves are sometimes things that they've heard from other people telling them that they can't do it. So that's why I said be careful of where you get your advice, because sometimes it's also the people around us who will tell you you can't do this, but realize that we come from different generations. So our aunts and our uncles had a different upbringing, and some of them are still stuck in that thing, and sometimes they may not always be aware of that. I know that when I was talking about business, I had people telling me that in my family there's no businessman. There's no businessman. In fact, the one person told me that there's no tycoon in our family. But there's no tycoon. When they think business, they think tycoon. So there's no. I come from a humble family, very humble. Full of ministers, full of teachers, public servants, and so on. So I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. A lot of my knowledge, entrepreneurship, business knowledge, it comes from books. So if you go to certain people, people will tell you there is no this in this family. There hasn't been any this in this family. And you find people maintain the status quo. They don't break out of what. And when I started the podcast, I was just trying to remind people that we don't have those barriers that we used to have. We need to recognize that those barriers are are gone. I think whilst other people have recognized that those barriers are gone, there are still a lot of people who still act and believe as though those barriers still exist. So
So they're still in that
it's
cage. They're still trapped in
a
that cage.
psychological cage, and that's the first part. That's the first part. So the things we tell ourselves, sometimes you have to mute what you hear from other people. It's like a
Yeah.
radio play. Sometimes it's like a radio playing. You can hear that the radio is playing, but you can't really hear what is being said. So sometimes hear the noise, but don't listen to it. Just hear it, but don't listen to it. So I
Yeah.
think that would be my advice to people who have those sort of challenges, and say, look,
Mm.
this is an internal thing. It's an intuitive thing. It starts from you, and you need to
Mm.
go. You need to go with what you believe.
What you believe. And I believe also, when it's when they are listening, when they are hearing this noise, the biggest challenge for many people is that they don't know how to mute those noises. So I guess that's where we come in as professionals, you know,
Correct.
come in and assist them to do that.
Correct. I know in the work we do as a industrial psychology, we meet a lot of people, and in different authors, how many doctors and nurses, teachers are there, but people who just didn't follow in
Yeah.
their ambitions, and some of it was real resources. Sometimes it's needed to go out,
Yeah.
push
Yeah.
what they want.
Yeah.
So self-belief, self-belief, and self-belief is very important,
Okay.
Mati. Yeah. Um, I I want to also just say that, you know, it's a lonely road. It's a lonely
Yeah.
road.
I can imagine.
A lot of the things that you started by saying, in order to move mountains, you have to move the stones. And entrepreneurship requires a vision. A lot of the things that people end up seeing in the end are things that start in your mind. It's like a DJ when playing songs.
Okay.
Before the crowd hears the music, the DJ's got the headphones and hears the song first, and then slowly introduces the song to the crowd. And it's like entrepreneurship. By the time people see a building, they see employees, they see a
Yeah.
logo, they see products, they see services. It actually starts here. You are the DJ,
Someone
and
else. Yes.
it can take time. So what people see me doing now are things that I started working on 7 years ago. But I always had a vision in my head, and it's a lonely road, because not everybody, it's like a song playing to you only. Not everybody can always hear that song. So
Yeah.
recognize that, you know, you don't need, or you don't always need validation from other people to do what you want. It's your own vision. You have to visualize everything, and as time goes on, people will start seeing what it is that you
What
actually
it is.
were talking about.
And the biggest challenge as well, what we're seeing is in the social media. You know, there's a lot of sort of so what you call knowledgeable people out there. You know, people will try and pull you down. The social media is not a, you know, you need to be very strong when you get into the social media. There's a lot of stories that goes out there that discourages people.
Yes.
For example, you may find that we are discussing this issue and somebody may turn it around and say it's something else.
Yes. No, that's
So
true.
how do you deal with that?
No, it just goes back to my point that self-belief and muting that radio that plays out.
Yeah.
And not just social media, even COVID. You speak to 10 different,
Yes.
you speak to 10 different people about COVID, you'll get 10 different responses. So I keep telling my group, my employees, that guys, regardless of the challenges that we have to just stick our head down and remember why we're all here. You know.
Yes.
So mute that noise. Learn to mute all that noise, because you could easily give up. You could
Yeah.
easily give up. So you need to always just mute that noise and be careful. Be careful to filter out things. So even with social media, you need to really filter out who is talking. Is it an authoritative source?
Yeah.
If it's not an authoritative source, then you need to learn to mute the noise.
Okay. All right. As we slowly wrapping down, so what will be the message that you want to leave with the people out there? Is there anything that you want to say?
Yeah. I'm very pro entrepreneurship. I believe that economic growth in this country will come from entrepreneurs. It's your small, medium entrepreneurs that will drive this economy. It's not the big corporate, it's not government. So we shouldn't expect government to open vacancies and employ people. It's actually the small businesses that
Yeah.
open up. So that my message is more to entrepreneurs, because that's a subject that I understand. I understand their pain. I understand their frustrations.
Yeah.
And I would say a few things. The first one is study the market very well. Study the market. You need to know the market very well. The entrepreneurs that do well are people that know the market left, right, and center. So you need to understand your competitors. You need to understand who's doing well, who's not doing well. You need to understand how much they cost, they price. And you need to understand what is the acceptable level of quality in
Yes.
your sector. And you need to really work hard that all the time you improve. In my business, we have a continuous improvement philosophy.
Yes.
I give feedback to my people almost, I don't know, on a weekly basis. And I tell them, I'm not saying you're doing it wrong. I'm just saying that let's improve on it. And sometimes they've gotten used to me now that, if they show me something, I'm going to find something to improve about it. And I tell them that that's the only way we're going to keep clients, is when you always improve on what you're doing. So we have learned to give each other feedback. They also give me feedback. And that's the
Yeah.
culture, is to always improve. If you've been doing something in a certain way in 2019, 2020, you need to tell yourself that we need to improve the bar. So I make it a habit to change templates all the time. I've got templates that we use when we write reports. They are never, if you look at templates we're using now, the templates we're using in 2016, they're all different. And it's intentional. That's the philosophy. Try to improve all the time. And I want to, it's a goal of mine to always try and impress a client. So when they get something from me, first of all, we'll tell a client you'll get it on Friday, and then we'll push to give it to them on Wednesday. So already they get it on a Wednesday. They were expecting to get it on Friday. It already impresses them. That's the first part. But then when they open whatever it is that we've sent it to them, they might expect X. But
Yeah.
my plan is to give X plus 10. So I want to leave at wow feeling. And guess what? When they need a similar service, guess who they're going to think about first? It's me. So that's my first advice. Study the market, study the competitors, and try to outwork them. Try to impress your clients. And the other message I want to leave to the guys there that would be entrepreneurs is to always have plan A, plan B, and plan C. And not all things work according to plan A. So you may find you have to go to plan B, and planning plan B and plan C is not a sign of anticipating failure. It's just to say that fine, if things don't work out the same way, you've got something to fall on.
Yeah.
So even level 5 lockdown at level 4, step on to
Yeah.
plan, because especially now. So I think
Okay.
that would be the second message that I'd want to leave the people with.
Yes. Okay. All right. No. Thanks very much, Tshepo. This is not the end of it. I mean, I will be talking about leadership. You know, you mentioned certain things there that are very interesting in terms of how you lead your team, and I want you to, you know, even if it's not this kind of long discussions, but I'll engage you further on how you can assist others out there in terms of leadership, how to do in leadership. Everybody, thank you very much, and Tshepo, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And there's more topics that I will you know, engage you with guys with at a later stage. And for now,
Thank you.
goodbye. Be on the couch with
Thank you.
Matita.
Thank
Keep
you.
well.